got a question, Ask Tom on Home Show Radio.
This is Home Show Radio live on Facebook and YouTube. Your questions, Tom's answers. Now here's Tom Tynan and Charlie Mosier.
And we begin Home Show Radio, live, Facebook. I don't know. There's so many things we do. Facebook, YouTube, radio. What else? Just saying. A Daily Mail on the web and in the videos and. Whew. Anyway, hello. Nice to see y'all. I answer your questions every Saturday and Sunday on Sports Radio 610, and it's home improvement questions. Had a lot lately, if y'all hadn't realized, about pipes and cold weather and pipes and more pipes. But we're all getting through that, and it'll be something else in the summer. Maybe hurricanes or tsunamis. We'll see what happens. Maybe earthquake season, they told me, starts next week. I'm not sure what that means. But we'll be answering questions about that if we need to also. And, of course, I'm here with Mr. Charlie Mosier, and he is going to help me out today after I tell you that you can listen to Danny Milliken 7 to 9 on Saturdays, 9 to 12 right after his show. You can listen to me. And on Sunday, you can listen to Charlie and me from 8 to 8:30, and then 8:30 to 11. I'm on again on Sports Radio 610 in Houston, Texas, or our podcast at homeshowradio.com. Whew. Charlie, help me.
You really made the graphics guy works for a living there for
I saw that going. I was like, whoa,
Good.
faster.
I was feeling like Fox News for a minute. Everything was moving so fast. So anyway,
Well, they have producers.
Well, what am I, chop liver? But anyway, no.
No, you've got like one of those Etch-a-Sketches in front of you. Woo!
Yeah.
Going along.
The only notch down to this would be if I was doing it on an iPad. But no, we're here to help you out. Answer the questions. You send us at homeshowradio.com with the Ask Tom section. We answer some of those here. And of course, we usually welcome your comments. But truth of the matter is, we recorded this show a couple days ago because I'm on the road for the next couple days. And Tom was gracious enough to make time for us to record this so we could still answer some of your questions and take care of you at the appointed time. So let's say we get to it.
I'm here.
Let's go.
I'm listening.
First one.
I'm good.
I go all the way to Richmondville, New York. And
Wow.
James, he says, I have an 1850s house. It was built without roof vents. It has a hip roof, and the roof boards rest on the top plate. I'm sure this is all making perfect sense to you, Tom. Mm-hmm. What are my options to vent this kind of attic?
Back then, they used to, I bet you his whole attic is floored. I had a home in Lake Placid, New York that was built in 1891 or something. So they did a whole different frame technique. And one of the things they would do is they'd have these little weird staircases up to the attic, and it would all be floored. And what he's saying is it's floored across the top 100%. So there's no opening to the soffits. And that's what they did. And then they had these hatches on the gabled ends that you would flip up on the inside and have a little eye hook and just open it up in the summer. And in the winter, people didn't live a lot of those houses up in the winter with summer homes only. So they'd close them all up, and that was it. It was shut down for the winter and they'd be back in the summer, depending where you are. At least with my house, that's the way it was. But you can't do a lot except ventilate it the best you can. And in this case, gable vents and ridge vents is what I probably would recommend, because you're wanting to keep the temperature very cold, and it'll do that. You don't need a lot of air movement. You just don't want the temperature to be warm in there in the winter time. Summertime's not a big deal in that part of the country. Winter time, you don't want the heat to stay in there. So if the heat is escaping, and on an old home like that, it's not going to be super insulated. So you want that attic to be as super cold as it is outside. That way the snow won't melt on the roof. It'll stay on there, and you won't get ice dams, and you won't get buildup from the thawing and the freezing and the thawing of what's on the roof. And that's the way they would handle it. So if it's not there, gable vents, and I'm sure you have some gables, and you can run ridge vents, that's perfectly fine. But forget the soffit vents. You're not going to be able to tear that house all up to put those in, so don't try.
Yeah, I heard you say that the other day, and I'd forgotten those bad old days in New Hampshire when you talked about the snow on the roof and how the house that doesn't have the snow on the roof has a problem under the roof. Yes.
And as a lot of us know, in the Texas area where we're based, I got a lot of calls from people because we had snow, and that's very rare here. A lot of people never experienced it. But the ones that had the snow melt off fastest were thinking, hey, my house is great. Look, I don't have any snow, and those people still have snow on them. And it's totally opposite. They had it all wrong. And their neighbors were looking, saying, how come my snow didn't melt? The reason it was is because the house was more insulated, so the attic stayed cold, and the snow will eventually melt with the sun on it. But you don't want that thawing and freezing. In Texas, not the big deal, except people are asking the questions. When you have snow on your roof for 6 months, 4 months, 3 months out of the year, and it's thawing underneath and then refreezing at night, it crawls under the shingles and creates an ice dam, and then you get these big humps at the bottom of the roof where it's getting more icy and icy, and that gets to be a big mess. They literally, I know in Lake Placid they would do this with poorly insulated homes. Guys would get on the roof in the middle of winter with these spiked shoes because it was ice under there, and they would start taking axes and hacking on the roof to get the ice and snow off. It used to freak me out thinking, that can't be good for the roof, but they had to do it.
Imagine, yeah. I mean, we don't have those problems. We have different problems in
No,
Houston.
we have 1 day of snow every 16 years, so it's
Right.
okay, and that's this
Right.
much.
And everyone is prepared. It's like they used to say that, generals prepare for the last war, and right now Texans are preparing for the last freeze. So God knows when we'll get another one, and we just gotta be
In
careful.
1977, I was living in Coconut Grove, Florida, just outside of the city of Miami. We had snow in Coconut Grove, Florida. Nobody had a coat, period. Nobody had heat, including me in my little apartment. I was welding at the time. We were freezing, saying the end of the world was here. Because it was the same year we had the gas prices go way up to 70 cents a gallon, because the end of the world was there with the gasoline, too.
Right.
And
Yeah,
we
I
just
remember.
knew it was over. That was
Yeah.
it. It was done.
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
It's 1977. You were about 19.
Yeah, I was welding.
Yeah, I know, because I graduated high school the year I was 18. So I'll
you
never forget 77 is one of those years you remember. You know, the year they
It was, yeah.
the year you got your degree, your diploma from high school, and when I went to my graduation, I left the engine running. I was like, out of here. So I'm sure you were the same.
I remember it because it was the 1 year in my life I went to Mardi Gras with a bunch of guys in a Dodge Champion. It's like a Winnebago,
Yeah,
an
I
RV,
remember, yeah.
and we got in so much trouble. I'm surprised I even survived that week.
Well, thank God you
Memories.
did, because otherwise you'd be a real problem for Jerry and his question. How would you answer that? All right, he says, Jerry from Clear Lake says, I'm considering a backup generator. Speaking of preparing for the last storm, we have a 2-story home with 2 HVAC systems. Do you recommend a unit with enough capacity for the entire house? Or would it be better to exclude the upstairs HVAC and get a smaller unit? And do you have recommendations for an installer?
Okay, first off, an installer for the Houston area, and those areas around there, is KISS Generator. They're the same people that I work with as far as maintaining mine. Now, when I had mine put in, I have a 2-story, 2 units. The units are small in size because the whole house is split in half. They're like 3 tons each. One I think is 3.5. And I have my 1 unit set up to do both, but not running full capacity all the time. Heating, not a big deal if you have to run it during the winter, because all it is a fan motor. I have natural gas heat, so that's going to be a factor. If you have all electric heat, when you sit down, if you call KISS Generators, you sit down with Bert and work with his team, they're going to design it for that. Mine didn't take much during the winter time because it's just gas furnaces. All it takes is a fan, like I mentioned. Air conditioning, what we do is I know better than to let that thing max out. So what I'll do is we'll turn the upstairs on a little bit, run the downstairs because that's where we spend most of our time during the day. And then if we need to, and I don't have kids anymore, we would do opposite. But right now it's downstairs for us. So mainly we use 1 unit, but we do have the capacity to change one to the other without being a problem. You just got to be careful and understand it. But that's where KISS Generators comes in. People say, hey, I want this size. Don't size it. Sit down and ask these questions and let them do a load calculation. And then you do a estimate on what it's going to cost for your ideal situation, and then you can make compromises to get the price down on the size and the install. And most people will, because you can buy a whole power plant if you want. You don't want to do that, because I want people to remember it's an emergency backup generator. It's not the whole ball of wax as far as being a power plant, although it could be, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah, I mean, and who would get a generator like that would power everything all the time? I mean, come on.
You can.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't. But when people
mine.
see 20,000, 30,000, I'd like it closer to 20 than 30. You can make compromises, or even 20 to 15. Make a little compromise. There's ways to do it.
Right, and they can. My understanding from what Bert said is they can load shed, where like
Yes.
if you have your washing machine, and when your washing machine runs, the oven won't work, or things like that.
Yep.
So you can get down into a smaller generator and still have enough power for everything that's essential if you want to go that route. I just had I got mine because it was extenuating circumstances, and I could get it for what I could get a smaller one for. And if you can get
You got a
real
deal. Nothing wrong with getting a deal. Hey,
I like
gets
deals.
deals everywhere. She's always
Right.
bragging. I saved 20 cents on this coupon. Really?
It's one of my it's one of my watchwords. If it's free, it's for me.
Yeah, I like it. I'm not going to say no to it,
Yeah.
but
Learned that one from my buddy Bill Moffat. All right. The next question comes to us from the Aldine area here in Houston. Linda says that the Arctic freeze busted her pipes. They're now fixed and working, and there are no observable leaks, which is good. Everything works in the home except the master shower. And I would think that's the thing you'd really notice that's not working, right? It sputtered and put out a lot of air and water for 20 seconds, then quit, both the hot and the cold. I cleaned out the head, like you talk about, Tom, but still only drips. Any suggestions on what I can do about this?
most showers today, and I had our master went out too, it was in the shower head. If it's not in the shower head, most showers today in the last 20, 30 years have a single handle faucet. They do that so you can't scald yourself. There's settings on there and you don't have to deal with the double handled. And that's why you see those. And it can get a lot of debris in that mixer valve, which is where the handle is. It's got a cartridge. It's got these little tiny holes. And what you need is to have a plumber come out and just take it all apart, clean it all out, and put it back together if you don't want to do it yourself. I would recommend a plumber because the mixer valves are so diverse. There's so many different ones that unless you're really experienced in taking apart that one and putting it back together, and you might need a new cartridge and some new parts, it's a lot easier to do that. But it's not a major expense or a horrible thing like when the pipes are busting or bursting and you've got water all over and your floor's all a mess. It's just something that has to be done. It's really not something people should get anxiety over.
My shower's
Cold
not working.
weather anxiety.
I have anxiety. My shower's not working. So.
Well, hopefully she has another one in the house. There's
Yeah,
more
maybe.
than
Yeah.
one.
Well, that's,
But
we're
not
having,
like the master. Yeah.
No. We're ours is actually under construction right now. Jeff Roberts and his band of merry men are rebuilding our showers. So we're in a second one. But I will tell you, when the water was out and it came back on, it really makes you appreciate, the comforts of life that we enjoy. And it's, in a way that storm, I mean, once we get past it all, I know there are people still dealing with it, but once we get by it, there's something good to be learned from that. I mean, that, life is fragile and we have to take care of ourselves and appreciate the things we have.
I just talked to a friend that lives in the Philippines. For all of us people complaining about our plumbing and inconvenient and plumbers, they use a chamber pot because they have no running water in many of the homes over there. So put it in perspective, okay, people? We got it really well for everybody in the United States, and everybody has an opportunity to make it better. It's a beautiful place to be.
I think the thing I appreciate the most since the plumbing came back on is not having to fill that bucket and keep filling the tank so we could,
It's like an opposite chamber pot.
It really was. I'm just glad my neighbor had a pool. So
That's the only reason I have one.
Okay. Next question comes from Lynn. She's in Spring, Texas, and she says, what are your thoughts about putting an electric insert into a never-used wood-burning fireplace? There are no gas lines, so that's not an option, I guess. Who do you hire for that kind of job? An electrician, a chimney person, and any caveats on this kind of project, Tom?
No, I think if you want to get one of these heaters that go in there that are run by electricity, that's fine. Everybody needs that. Now, when the power goes out, it's not going to be helpful like, say, gas logs where you have natural gas. But if you wanted to, call Lord's Chimney. I'm sure they have an electrician they work with. You're going to need someone to run the power. If they'll install it and you need to run the power, call Right Touch Electrical first, let them run the power, and then let Lord's Chimney put in the heating system of your choice. Work with them on that. They're chimney sweeps. Because once you get into the chimney itself, that's when you have a specialist, and it's not an electrician, but they certainly can run the power to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking to Lee the other day about those inserts because we're in that kind of place. We have these antique gas logs. I think they came over on the Mayflower. They're so old.
Yeah.
And so we're saying, Sandy we were talking about the fact that our chimney, where in our living room, was the single coldest place in the house. Because it was sucking all. And Lee said it's supposed to be because it's pulling the air out. That's what the chimney's supposed to be doing.
It's absolutely true. Yes, that's why they're supposed to work.
Right.
If you don't like that when you build a home, don't put one in.
Right. Exactly.
It's that simple.
Well,
it's a hole in the house.
We've already planned on it. We're getting pricing and all that. We're gonna call like in May or June when he's sitting there polishing his chimney brushes and have him come over and put one of those inserts in, because he says the nice thing about that insert is that you can dial up the temperature you want. It'll keep the room at that temperature, and it's a great idea. So that's the way we're going with our fireplace, because we don't need. You
can even get them with remote control. So you got the TV, the fireplace.
Wait, can I get one that can operate from my
food and you wear a diaper? You don't even have to move for days.
Can I get one that I can operate from my iPhone?
You know what? Probably.
I'm in.
I'm serious. I bet you there is.
I'll bet there is. Yeah. And if anybody knows, Lee from Lord's knows that. And you heard Tom mention Right Touch. And I bet Abacus might even be able to run a gas line there if you want to put gas in.
Well, actually, that's a great comment, because Lord's will probably run a gas line to a point unless it gets really difficult. But people don't realize we're always worried about these water pipes. Plumbers run gas lines. That's part of what they are licensed to do. So just keep that in mind if you ever need a gas line running into something like this, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And if you're in the Houston area, the place to find those people is at homeshowradio.com over there. On the homepage, we have all of the pros listed right there. And if you don't know which pro, click on Find a Pro, and we sort them by category so you can find the person you need that way. Make another thing that we do at homeshowradio.com. I say we. It's Zach.
Okay.
He asked me,
It's part of we. That's a team.
Yeah. We have something. We have something set up on our website that does something automatically that I set up a long time ago. And he asked, "How does that work?" I said, "I don't remember. Go figure it out." Like,
hey, I'm trying to get my phone screener to work. So what are you going to
do? Did you work that out this weekend?
No, I got to call Chad tomorrow, but that's not for here or there, but I will be on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, just in case you're wondering what Tom's talking about, when he does the show from his house or from Brownsville, wherever he happens to be, it's Saturday morning, wherever he wakes up that day, that's where he's doing the show.
Yeah, pretty much.
But he has a little computer that enables him to see the calls that we're lining up as you're calling in. And so they see each other, and his isn't working. And part of the reason for that is that I think it runs on like Windows 7 or something. I mean, it's an old
it's
piece of software.
Old.
Oh, it's old.
They don't
it's
make
got,
it anymore.
Yeah, there's graffiti on the package that says Bill Gates blows. It's old. And that's only because that somebody here at the office will not agree to upgrade the phones to the digital. And so,
not me. I have nothing to do with it.
I'll just say this about that. My daddy said, "It's not what you make; it's what you keep."
It works fun. When it works, it's great.
Yeah. Isn't that true of so many things?
Yes.
Okay, last question for us today. This comes from Fernando in Porter. He says, we're replacing a door frame and the new door isn't pre-hung, and we need to attach the hinges to the door and the door frame. How do we recommend you do this, Tom? I mean, the pre-hung ones almost spoil us when you put those in. But what's the more manual way of doing that?
You measure from the top down. You leave a gap, an 1/8 inch all the way around. This is going to be really hard for me to answer this on this format or a radio format. But here's what I want you to remember. Always start from the top down, never the bottom up. Okay? Do that, and always take into consideration the gap, because you need at 1/8 of an inch at the top. This is not a submarine door. You want it to open and close and expand and contract a little bit. And so what I like to do is put the door in place and mark it from the top down. If you're going to do it with a tape measure, take your measurements very carefully. Just do the top and then go ahead and prep for the hinge to go in so it's flush. But the top down is the best advice I can give anybody. And don't forget the 1/8 of an inch on the top and the 2 sides. That should come natural. It's the top you got to watch out for. And we can do a video on how to with something like that, Charlie.
That's a great idea.
I use just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And you know, Fernando, the way I do that is I use this.
Rudy's Quality Painting. He'll hang the door for you.
I call Rudy, and in case you're wondering where to find Rudy, go here to homeshowradio.com. He's hidden right here on the homepage. You scroll down, there's his name right there. All right. So yes. Yeah, that's the name of that program. So your program, of course, is Home Show Radio. Tom will be back this Saturday taking your calls on the radio.
Yes, I will, and I look forward to it this weekend on Home Show Radio, 9 to noon on Saturday and 8 to 11 on Sunday.
Preceded on Saturdays by Danny Milliken and the Home Show Garden Pros. That's where you'll find them. If you'd like to get your questions on here, go ahead and visit homeshowradio.com. Click on that blue Ask Tom button. It takes you to this page, and that is where you can either use our little form to send your question in, or you can send a video or pictures. When we're done doing this, we're going to record the next 7 of these for the next week, and we got a bunch of pictures this week. Appreciate you sending those in, but send them in. We answer them in a video. We post a new one. Tom answers a question every day, and it's posted fresh to homeshowradio.com, our Facebook page, and of course our YouTube channel, where there is a cornucopia of know-how collated for your perusal on just about every topic you can imagine.
I got nothing more to add.
Okay. Well, then
too many big words.
Yes. Well, I will add. Then I will simply say that we will see you again next Thursday, 4 o'clock, for Ask Tom Live, right here on YouTube and Facebook.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio. Home Show Radio. Free advice from a pro who knows. Home Show